We're going to get started here in just a moment. If you've got the printout of the handout, make sure you've got it. And Lisa will be back on and get us started in a moment.
We're ready, Randy, we're ready when you are.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the May webinar book briefing for SGR. Lisa, come back on just a second. You know how I do this. I want to make sure that you can hear me okay. So wave if you can hear me okay. All right, good. So here we go. All right. And Lisa will put the handout in the chat in case any of you do not have it. So here's what I do. Normally, Mike Mowry is with us, and he is on an airplane. Actually, that's not correct. He is in an airplane, flying to Boston for a seminar or retreat or training that he has to do there. And he might find himself checking in with a basketball game tonight. So that's where Mike Mowry is today. I am in Richardson, Texas, near Dallas, right near a place called Richland College, and I do the monthly book briefing. I read a book, I prepare a multi-page comprehensive briefing handout, and you have this, and here's what I promise to you, that if you will listen with your pen in hand, mark up your handout, and then one time in the next few days, reread this handout cover to cover. You will understand the book. And today's book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, Achieve Your Wildly Important Goals, is one of these big picture books on how an organization needs to prepare to tackle the big questions. And there are really 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 competing systems to do this kind of work in an organization. So I want to share a couple of things on the screen. So if you'll take a look at the screen, I created this a number of years ago. I call this my bubble. So these are my bubbles. And this came after reading around 15 years worth of business books. I have now presented synopses or briefings on over 600 business books over the last 28 years. So after reading a number of them, on the left, and admittedly these are kind of for-profit organizations, assuming that you have a product or service that others will pay for, and assuming process excellence. You've got excellent business processes such as logistics, accounting, billing, collecting. I'll tell you that I live in Richardson, and it is a very easy thing to pay my water bill online, that kind of process. And then marketing and sales, customer acquisition, and customer service, customer experience, that is customer retention. So those are the basics. If you don't have those, you're not in business. And then on the right, this is what we have to constantly work on. And I start in the middle, and then I go up to the top left and go clockwise. So the healthy and growing organization is constantly adapting and innovating. Your city, your team is doing things differently than it was doing them 10 years ago, 15 years ago, some of you 2 years ago. The pandemic certainly changed a lot of things in how we function. And then you go up to the top left, meaning you start with your why. And by the way, I've presented books on every one of these circles on this bubble chart. So you start with why, then you build your strategy, then you have your leader in place, and you're developing leaders, and some cities really do this well. And then you have your team and your team members, and they function well as a team. They're functional, not dysfunctional. And then you hire and develop and nurture your talent. You get everyone on the same page. You are aligned with corporate culture. Then you practice excellent communication, both written and spoken. And so there are a lot of books that I've presented on these, Made to Stick and Smart Brevity, but we've got to always be working on our communication. Then you execute your strategy, you measure your progress. Boy, is that critical. And then you remove your bottleneck. So those are the bubbles that I developed years ago. And now I'm going to share one more piece that I prepared in connection to the very question that this book is dealing with. You'll notice that it's called Thought Prompted by Measure What Matters, which is one of the books that deals with this kind of question that the 4 disciplines of execution deals with. I'll scroll to the bottom, and here are some of the books that deal with this. Measure What Matters by John Doerr, and this is the OKR, the objective. You start with the objective, and then you go to the key indicators, and so OKRs, and then the book Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business, and this is the iOS operating system, and Mastering the Rockefeller Habits and his follow-up Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, and this book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And here's what I want you to notice. Each organization needs a usable system to plan for the future, to get all things done, and to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. This book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, but he's writing about his own book, Traction. This book provides such a system. You can only run your business on one operating system. So you decide your system, you put it in place, and you work it. And you've got to work it. So, assuming clear values, here's what all of the competing systems have in common. Number 1, a call for a big picture target. And in the book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution, that target is called a WIG, a wildly important goal. So be sure you got that name in your head as we go through the handout. And then agreement on and commitment to annual targets and shorter term targets, maybe quarterly. And then number 3, a way to measure progress toward the target and then actually measuring that progress. Number 4, regular meetings away, big picture meetings. Picture an annual retreat at an outside location for the city manager and the department heads, or the city council and the mayor, where there is an annual retreat saying, this is what we're going to work towards this year. And then many ongoing meetings along the way, progress meetings, almost for the simple purpose of repeating and repeating and repeating what our wildly important goals are for the year. And then thorough, repetitive communication about progress toward the goal. So those 2 sheets might help you think about what we're talking about with this book, The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Now, I want to say one more thing about why this book today and why Mike Mallory, who is normally with us, is so high on this book. He is an organizational expert, Mike Mallory is. And he has built the organization, especially the training end of SGR. And he has implemented some of the steps, some of the strategies and tactics in this book. And the fact is, it is an ongoing challenge to always implement this. So you have to keep working at it. Now, if you've got your handout, get your pen. Here we go. On the front, once you've decided what to do, your biggest challenge is in getting people to execute it at the level of excellence you need. We are in a competitive world. And I live here in the Dallas area. And there are countless outer cities, suburbs, bedroom communities, other kinds of outer cities. And they are in competition. Don't kid yourself. They are in competition for economic development, office buildings, retail outlets, companies moving headquarters in. If you follow the business press, there's always an announcement of another company is moving their headquarters to Plano or Irving or Frisco. And so any kind of economic development puts the cities in competition. You've got to execute at the excellent level of excellence you need to be a desirable location for citizens, businesses, organizations. That's the way it works. All right, why is this book worth our time? I always do this in my handout. Number one, we get bogged down in the day-to-day demands and fail to look at the next step forward. This book will help us do that. Number two, we look at the wrong data. This book will help us know the numbers to watch, the score to keep. Here's a hint. You don't look at yesterday's numbers. You don't just dream about tomorrow's numbers. You look at what you can measure now. And then number three, we plan, but we are not held accountable. We do not hold ourselves accountable or the other members of our team accountable. This book will help us implement a system to help hold ourselves and each team member accountable, and thus to actually execute the plan. Now, let me have you write down, you've got the white space here, 2 words. The first one, write down the word wig. I want us to really grasp this word and write down its definition: wildly important goal. Wildly important goal. And so WIG is that wildly important goal that you are going to be pursuing. So write that down. And then kind of draw a line and write down this word, whirlwind. I love the imagery of whirlwind. And then write down below whirlwind all the other stuff. That's the whirlwind. All the other stuff. That's the potholes that need to be fixed. The library that has to have something happen. The park where there's been some kind of problem with some kind of teenage wildness. You pick whatever term you want. But the whirlwind are all of those notifications landing on your phone, distracting you. And what this book says is we live almost all of our life in the whirlwind, and we need to save time to tackle the WIG, the wildly important goal. Okay, turn to page 2, and let's go. By the way, I'm having enormous allergy problems, so if my eyes look watery and if you see me rubbing my nose, I apologize about that. All right, underneath the book image, what is the point? To build a better future, we have to escape the whirlwind, the daily demands of work, and focus on our WIG, our wildly important goals. So, did you see what I did? I had you write it, and now I've got it here. So, I am repeating the key concept, repetitive communication. You'll need to do this if your people ever understand what the wildly important goals are. All right, from the foreword, the authors, I'm here on this part, the authors explain not only the what, but also how effective execution is achieved. But managers who must know whether their strategy, the what of their work, is the right one or the wrong one, need as much certainty as possible. Are we working on the best, big, wildly important goals? Some other acronyms that have been used in other systems are BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, versus the kind of goal that is easy to deal with. The BHAG, the WIG, is a big, hairy, audacious, wildly important goal. All right, I'm not going to read all of these. These are the best of my highlighted passages from the book. When you see one in larger font or bold, that's my emphasis. We're going to go through them fairly quickly, so let's get going. Number 8, it's natural for a leader to assume that people are the problem. The people are not the problem. That's a quote from Edward Deming, the father of the quality movement. All of that Six Sigma quality, the kinds of things that we aim for, few mistakes, few flaws. He went to Japan and taught them when America wasn't really willing to listen to him. So that's the idea. The people are not the problem. Deming, the father of the quality movement, taught that any time the majority of the people behave a particular way, the majority of the time, the people are not the problem. The problem is inherent in the system. Boy, underline that phrase. The problem is inherent in the system. And here's the reality. Your system will produce the result it is designed to produce. If your goal is to sit down every night and eat a pint of ice cream, that will lead to an outcome. The system leads to an outcome. So that's what that's about. Number 11, the further from the top of the organization, the lower the clarity. And so the people at the top think they know the wildly important goals. The people at the bottom don't really know it at all. That's a failure of communication. That is a significant failure, a failure of communication. Number 12, in short, people weren't sure what the goal was. They weren't committed to it. They didn't know what to do about it specifically, and they weren't being held accountable for it. That's a description of a dysfunctional, unsuccessful organization. The people weren't sure what the goal was. They weren't committed to it because they didn't know what it was. They didn't know what to do about it, and they weren't being held accountable. Turn to page 3 in the handout. Page 3. I have strange messages on my computer in Zoom. That's the whirlwind. Page 3. Number 14. The whirlwind is urgent, and it acts on you and everyone working for you every minute of every day. Number 16. If you ignore the urgent, it can kill you today. So you're already thinking, hey, wait a minute. What about the whirlwind that we have to tackle? We have to fix the potholes. We have to get this accomplished. So that's the idea. You've got to tackle it. And if you don't, it will kill you today. But it's also true, however, that if you ignore the important, it can kill you tomorrow. If all you do is fix the potholes, you'll have streets that are smoother and safer and no economic development and no long-term plan. So you can't ignore the big ones, nor can you ignore the small ones. This is the challenge in every organization. Number 19, the 4 disciplines of execution aren't designed for managing your whirlwind. The 4 disciplines are rules for executing your most critical strategy in the midst of the whirlwind. Number 31, the inability of leaders to focus is a problem of epidemic proportion. Leaders have got to learn to focus. And by the way, that's every leader. The city manager, the department heads, the team leaders, every supervisor, every manager. Leadership requires focus on the big, wildly important goals. Turn to page 4. Number 34. This is us. In our culture of multitasking, according to a professor at Stanford, the neural circuits devoted to scanning, skimming, and multitasking are expanding and strengthening, while those used for reading and thinking deeply with sustained concentration are weakening or eroding. Now, here's what that means. If you put up a 10-minute video on LinkedIn, it's too long. It's got to be 3 minutes. If you put up a 3-minute video, it's going to be too long. It needs to be 1 minute. We are now accustomed to brief exposure to content, and we are losing the ability to read and ponder deeply. I'm going to give you my bias. This will not surprise you. I think the leaders ought to be good at choosing and reading books in depth. There's a lot of evidence that say the best leaders can do that. And I believe that if you aspire to leadership, one of your jobs is to choose and read a book fully in depth. That's what we need. And I wrote a little note in the margin here. This quote, number 34, was written before artificial intelligence landed upon us, which is making focus for ourselves that much harder. We just turn over our focus job to ChatGPT. I'm not sure that's a smart move in the long run. Number 35, I'm back to reading. Habitual multitaskers may be sacrificing performance on the primary task. They are, I love this phrase, they are suckers for irrelevancy. I knew a man who was the president of Pepperdine University. His name is Bill Benoski. He's now deceased. President of Pepperdine University, president of the University of Oklahoma, and then later president of Gaylord. And so he was a top-notch executive. And Bill Benoski once said, we waste so much time on utter shallowness when we could be reading, and this is the example he used, Aristotle and Plato. Well, think about that phrase and think about this challenge. We are suckers for irrelevancy. Number 36, to succeed, you must be willing to make the hard choices that separate what is wildly important from all the many other merely important goals on your radar. Number 41 is quoting John Kennedy. This is a textbook example back decades ago of a wildly important goal. Why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? That goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win. And so you remember what happened. He said that in the early 1960s. He died in 1963. We put a man on the moon in 1969. Less than a decade of focus and intense work. And it really is significant. Now, the next thing to notice is if you look at the wildly important goal and focus on it, then you have to say no to other stuff. Look at number 42. As Steve Jobs often said, I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do. And Apple, until about a week ago, was the most valuable company on the planet for a number of years. And what did Steve Jobs do when he came back to Apple? He got rid of all but I think 4 products. He said, we're doing too much. We're going to do 4 products. And then he added the iPhone, and holy mackerel, everything went wild in a good way. Turn to page 5, number 51. In the words of consultant and entrepreneur Richard Post, in business, the mass of activity. This is a profound insight. The mass of activity will always be pointless. A small portion of activity will always be terrifically effective. Right in the margin there, the 80-20 rule. It's an old, established, absolutely correct rule that 80% of the results come from 20% of the work. Number 52, when a team defines its lead measures, they are making a strategic bet. Number 61 on page 5, we have learned that scoreboards can be a powerful way to engage employees. A motivating player's scoreboard not only drives results, but uses the visible power of progress to instill the mindset of winning. So you see the progress, a thermometer, a chart, a scoreboard, something physical to see. Number 62, a winning team doesn't need artificial morale boosting. All the psyching up and rah-rah exercises companies do to raise morale aren't nearly as effective in engaging people as the satisfaction that comes from executing with excellence a goal that really matters. Let me pause here a minute. I recently presented the book, The Boys in the Boat. It's about the 1936 men's rowing team from the University of Washington that won the Olympic gold medal. It's also a movie. It's a great book. They chose the book. And one of the things that that book talks about is the soberness of the speeches, short speeches, by the coaches in rowing. That motivational speeches do not work for rowing teams. And that quote we just read, you know, there's research that says motivational speeches do not have lingering, lasting good results. But training in depth, reading books, getting into systems, that's how you change things for the better. Number 71 on page 6. Choose numbers that challenge the team without making it an unwinnable game. There's got to be stretch goals, but not impossible goals. So stretch goals, but not impossible. Number 73. Can we tell at a glance on every measure if we're winning or losing? Number 74. Make high impact commitments for the coming week. The effectiveness of the weekly WIG session. In the book, the authors recommend a weekly meeting session focused on the wildly important goals. Keep it in front of your people every single week. So I think that's really important. So the effectiveness of the WIG session, number 74, depends on the consistency of the cadence. The results on the scoreboard depend on the impact of the commitment. Number 81, remember, the greatest challenge is not in developing the plan. It's in changing the behavior of the frontline teams that must execute it while managing the never-ceasing demands of the whirlwind. Let me describe it simply. Your time will be totally filled with the stuff you have to do, the whirlwind. You have to carve out, protect the WIG goal section. But if you don't do that, you'll go 3 months, 6 months, 2 years without thinking about the long-term possibilities. So you've got to carve that time out and protect it. And then number 84, circle 84, this is a summary of how to do accountability. There are 2 parts to accountability. First, team members are accountable to each other to fulfill the personal commitments, only 1 or 2 commitments a week that they make. Second, equally if not important, Each team member needs the personal satisfaction and small wins of having done what they said they were going to do and reporting it. Think about children in school with report cards. This is a subtle form of recognition that each player receives every week when they report on their commitment. Okay, turn to page 7. It looks like this. On the right, you need a system that lifts you out of the day-to-day demands, the whirlwind, and points you to future steps forward. Really big, major steps forward. This system needs to work for every team, for every person, throughout the organization. And this system needs to protect the system itself so that no team, no person is ground down by the ever-present whirlwind. The 4 disciplines of execution provide just such a system. Note, this system was widely tested over a long period by the folks at Franklin Covey. Notice that one of the authors is John Covey, the son of Stephen Covey. Only after it was proven to be genuinely workable was it then rolled out and this book was published. I'm going to fly through this. And here's the problem with a book briefing. You will put this aside. Some have already had to leave the webinar, and you may or may not reread it, but then you'll ask yourself, what do I do with it? And most people will do nothing with it. We don't change the way we function. I knew a woman who was a top producer, real estate agent. And she would go to these seminars on how to be a better real estate agent. And other real estate agents that I knew, my wife worked in the group. So other real estate agents that I knew would go to the same seminar. They'd come back and they would implement nothing. But this woman who was the top producer, she would come back always with 1 or 2 things that she would implement going forward. And then she became even a more top producer. She had the ability to see what could be done and do it. Do you have that ability? It's an ability worth cultivating. All right. I'm not even going to take time to tell the success stories, except for one. Look at the last one. At Opryland, there was a long wait time, 106 minutes from the time a person checked in to when their luggage was delivered to the room. And the leadership said, we're going to cut that down. And I think they had a goal of maybe 20 minutes, but they got it down to 12 minutes. So that almost, as big as Opryland is, almost by the time the guests got to the room, the luggage was right there. That is a wildly important goal that they succeeded at. It's really something. All right, here's a reminder. I'm going down the page quickly. There are 2 categories. The first requires mainly a stroke of the pen. The second requires behavioral change. Behavioral change strategies are very different from stroke of the pen strategies. You can't just order them to happen because executing them requires getting people, often a lot of people, to do something different. Here are the 4 disciplines of execution. Circle each one of these bold points. Discipline number 1, focus on the wildly important, the whiz. Number 2, act on the lead measure. A lag measure is when you receive them, the performance that drove them is already in the past. This is how many games the Dallas Cowboys won so far this year, if you're in mid-season. That's a lag measure. A lead measure is quite different in that they are the measures of the most high impact things your team must do to reach that goal. We've been fumbling the ball too much. We're going to reduce it to one fumble every 3 games. You find a measure that you can measure. And so that's really important. A good lead measure has 2 basic characteristics. I'm reading. It's predictive of achieving the goal, and it can be influenced by the team members. Discipline 3, keep a compelling scoreboard. And so at the bottom, disciplines 1, 2, and 3 set up the game. But until you apply discipline 4, you're not in the game. Turn to page 8. Discipline 4, create a cadence of accountability. Yeah. Meetings with intent and purpose. The cadence of accountability, I'm reading, is a rhythm of regular and frequent meetings of any team that owns a wildly important goal. These meetings happen at least weekly, ideally last no more than 20 to 30 minutes. In that brief time, team members hold each other accountable for producing results despite the whirlwind. They don't let the whirlwind into that meeting. Nothing talked about with the stuff. We're talking about the wildly important goal. In the book, one company of blue-collar workers showed up in that meeting with neon pink and neon green wigs for the wildly important goal wig meeting. All right, now we'll just fly through this. Execution is about how, not what. I know what I need to do. I just don't know how to do it. Here are the rules. No team, right here, rule number 1, no team focuses on more than 2 wigs at the same time. That's the maximum. Jack Welch came up with that years ago in his best years at General Electric. Rule number 2, the battles you choose must win the war. Rule number 3, senior leaders can veto but not dictate. And rule number 4, all wigs must have a finish line in the form of from X to Y by when. Circle that. From X to Y by when. All right? You need a compelling scoreboard. You need a weekly wig meeting. You want to define the wig. You want 3 sources of organizational wigs down at the bottom. And the one that you really can translate easily is customer satisfaction. Turn to page 9. I'm going to wrap up in about 2 minutes. I have 6 lessons and takeaways. Number 1, your organization, your team, your city really does need a system to focus, to really focus on the 1 or 2 goals to move your organization forward. Outside of the whirlwind, this system in this book is one such workable system. Number 2, the top leader and every leader all have to fully commit to the 4 disciplines process, or it will not work, full stop. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Number 3, but every person, every team member has to have a voice. The system allows for and demands that each team member have a voice, a respected voice, a necessary voice in coming up with lead measures and updating and tweaking those measures constantly. Number 4, yes, this process system is plenty useful for personal challenges as well as challenges at work. Have a weekly, wildly important goal meeting with yourself. Number 5, this book is partly a game plan for fixing the knowing-doing gap. We know this, we're not doing. And number 6, remember you get what you tolerate, said Jocko Willink in Extreme Ownership and Leif Babbitt. This system's emphasis on accountability will help you be clear about what you will and will not tolerate. I think somebody put in the chat a screenshot of my bubbles and that page on some salt. I want you to look at those. I want you to read this handout carefully. And then ask yourself this question. If I actually implemented these 4 disciplines, could we have a shot at setting and reaching some wildly important goals? Well, that's the book briefing for today. I've gone over my intended time, and I apologize, but I do want to mention quickly, and I'm going to share this, so hold on one second. Everybody look at the screen, and next month for the book briefing, I'm going to present the brand new book by Admiral McRaven. I've done 3 books by him already. Conquering Crisis, 10 lessons to learn before you need them. This is Crisis Management 101 done well. So if your city will never have a crisis, you can skip next week's book briefing. But if there might be a crisis or 2 in your future, this could be a valuable book to learn and then tuck away when needed. Okay, Lisa, I think I'm through. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Randy. That was wonderful. I just wanted to mention next week our Wednesday webinar will be from Housen Lay. He is our futurist here at SGR. And then, like Randy mentioned, his next book briefing will be next month. So we are excited. We appreciate everyone joining us, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everybody.